Thing About Cars, a podcast for car enthusiasts and the people who love them.
Hello, this is The Thing About Cars coming to you from around the globe today. We've got, this week's episode is called Two Girls in a Car. The two girls are, Amanda, are you there?
I am.
And our new guest, Misty. Misty, hello.
Hi.
And the other guy in the back seat with me is Ben.
Hey.
Hi, Ben. Got enough leg room?
I think so, yeah.
I think we're going to have a really good episode today. Let's start our episode as always with a grand trivia auto question. Our grand trivia auto question for today is: in the late 1990s, BMW recalled their GPS system models. Why? Why did BMW recall their GPS system models? Was it because they would reverse street address numbers? Was it because they would only give directions in imperial units and not in metric? Was it because German drivers simply refused to take directions from a female voice? Or was it because an electrical fault would make David Hasselhoff appear in the back seat? Ben's laughing.
Yeah.
That's excellent. So many good choices.
Should I read them again?
So many good ones.
Right. So the question is, just to get it firm in everybody's mind, in the late 1990s, why didn't BMW recall their GPS system models? Was it because an electrical fault would make David Hasselhoff appear in the back seat? Was it because German drivers refused to take directions from a female voice? Was it because the units would only give directions in imperial units instead of metric? Or was it because the systems would inadvertently reverse street address numbers? Those are our choices. We will answer that question at the end of the episode. Let's shift gears and go into the Relationship Roadster segment. Amanda, what have you got for us today?
Today we're going to talk a little about a famous Ferrari or two.
Ooh, cool.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about TV shows, basically, and about, TV shows with cars and things like that. And Magnum PI had a pretty iconic Ferrari.
Right.
So the Ferrari 308 GTS and GTSI were the Ferraris that were on the show. So they did
That's
8
right,
seasons.
There were two of them. It wasn't the same car because did they wreck one or something? Yeah.
No, actually they had a new car each year.
Oh.
Each season of the show, they got a new car, and they apparently auctioned off all of them after the show wrapped for the season.
Wow.
And I'd be willing to bet there was at least one backup at all times, too.
I can't imagine there was not. Yes.
Right.
I said, I wouldn't mind a new Ferrari for every season of my life.
Right?
I'm okay with that.
I would be okay with that.
Yep. So I know Amanda's got more Ferrari stuff to talk about, but Tom Selleck was a tall dude. How did he fit into all those Ferraris?
I don't know. How tall was Tom Selleck?
Oh, about 6'4", and I've read about this. They did remove some of the padding from the bottom cushion. Of course, you'll notice, too, that they never had him drive it with the top on. But they did they did take some padding out of the bottom cushion so that his head wouldn't just look stupid sticking above the little piece of roof that was there.
All right. Sorry, Amanda. Please continue. I didn't.
I'm just imagining Tom Selleck all squashed into the car. So It turns out the same red Ferrari 308 GTS was in the movies Cannonball Run, National Lampoon's Vacation, and then the Transformers animated series.
No kidding.
So that's interesting that it was in each of those things. Yes.
You mean the same model, not an actual Magnum show car?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Well, as far as we know.
Yeah.
But in Cannonball Run, Sammy Davis Jr. drove the Ferrari dressed as Catholic priests. And then in National Lampoon's Vacation, Christy Brinkley was driving. And then in the Transformers animated series, it was Wild Rider, one of the Decepticons.
And I remember in Cannonball Run, there was the joke made that I forget whether it was Sammy or Dean said, God is our co-pilot, and somebody else on one of the other teams said, "Oh yeah, where's he going to sit? That thing's only got 2 seats."
That's excellent.
That's cool.
But I was just saying that is an interesting set of trivia about the Ferrari from different movie and TV shows.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of what
And
else,
that's it.
of course, there's the Miami Vice Ferrari, the Testarossa that was black before the police department appropriated it and painted it white in Miami Vice. What other Ferraris have made it into film and video, Ben?
Well, if I can back up to Miami Vice for a second there.
The Daytona.
Well, no, that was a different car. The Daytona in the first couple of seasons was a replica made by a guy named McBurney. It was built on a Corvette chassis, and the Testarossa was a completely different car, which was white from the get-go when it first appeared on screen in the show.
Except that there's one episode before it appeared as being white, and they were making an arrest, and they found a black Ferrari. And that was the one that later became. They didn't drive it in that episode, but a bad guy had it, and that was the one that later became the white Testarossa.
But the paint job is never mentioned in the story, so there's no insinuation in the story that it's the same car.
I thought it was. I thought they.
No, I watched all the episodes just a couple of years ago. There's a great scene in the beginning of season 3 where the Daytona's already been blown up, and the car used for all the close-ups in the series was the actual one that was blown up. It was an agreement with Ferrari, who were very pissed off that a replica of one of their cars was being featured in a successful series. So beginning of season 3, Crockett is upset that he doesn't have a cool undercover car. He's been driving these, municipal fleet 4-door Dodges on the job, and he says, my perps aren't buying it. They, how can I successfully pose as a drug runner if I'm showing up looking like little Abner?
Right.
And so Castillo, just kind of remains calm and says, "Come out back. I have something for you." They walk out there, and boom, there's the white Testarossa, and Sonny's suddenly like, "I like this guy."
Misty, have you ever driven a Ferrari?
No, I do have 2 in my display cabinet. One is a scale model of Sebastian Vettel's Ferrari.
Uh-huh.
I am a diehard Formula One person.
Yeah.
And
That's cool.
then I have, I don't know, what else do I have? There's also a DB9 in there and a replica of the Kit Firebird.
Yep.
Yeah,
So-
my husband, when my husband was still in the U.S. before we moved back here, he had a Firebird. So, and I took that car on a Atlanta to Tampa run, and I did it in 7 hours.
Nice.
Nice.
I don't
That's
know the
cool.
meaning of the word slow.
Yeah. Amanda, is that it? Can I shift gears now?
Certainly can.
Excellent. So that's, I think, a good segue to talk more about Misty's predilection for Formula One. Why Formula One out of all the other racing things that happen out there?
Have you not heard Michael Schumacher's 2004 car?
What?
Have you not heard that car? I have to go lay down. To quote Firefly, I'll be in my bunk. Jeez, had a moment there.
So
I don't know. I like the sound. They're such pretty cars.
So it was a V8, right? The 2004.
Yeah. I think that was the V8, and plus it's a lot easier for me, being over here in European time zones. It's a lot easier for me to catch, especially the European races. Although not being a morning person, I will get up at 6 a.m. to watch Formula One, and I have to remind myself that we live in close quarters. It is a small country, roughly the size of a postage stamp. I'm pretty sure my neighbors don't want to hear me screaming, imprecations at Romain Grosjean at 6 a.m.
So I think Ben may have a question, but I have one thing I want to ask. What is it that keeps you coming back to Formula One? Because I'm going to play devil's advocate here and say something really snarky. It's still cars going around laps, right?
have you not seen Fernando Alonso throw a temper tantrum? Have you not listened to Kimi Räikkönen on the radio? Leave me alone. I know what I'm doing. I mean, have you not? I mean, there is more drama in Formula One in the pit road, the pit lane, in the cars than America's Next Top Model. I mean, it's a bunch of divas. It's great. I love it.
Soap opera.
It is. It is. I mean, you have Fernando Alonso pulling off his helmet and sitting in a camp chair using his helmet as a footstool because he was mad at McLaren. You've got Max Verstappen. Bless his little heart. I love him. He's so cute. He tickled me.
Ben, did you have something that you wanted to add?
Not really. No, my only comment was I loved it back in the 70s and 80s, but the current stuff, nah, can't get into it.
Right. So, Misty, what do you drive? And let's first say, maybe we should back up. What part of the world are you in?
Currently, right now, I am about 35 minutes outside of Amsterdam. I'm kind of between Amsterdam and Leiden. I'm about 15 minutes outside of Leiden in a little town called Alphen aan de Rijn, where we drop bridges on houses because why not? Why not? Go ahead.
I think I've seen that video.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, really, people? So we moved. My husband is Dutch, and he lived in the United States. We lived in the Roswell Alpharetta area until 2004, because my husband was in IT and all the economic stuff. And we finally said, okay, this is getting ridiculous. Kind of packed it all in and moved in October of 2004 to the Netherlands. And I've been here, ever since. There's, and I'm really at the point now where I'm not really one and I'm not really the other. There's a lot of Dutch things that I do, but there's still, I'm still a Georgia girl.
Sure.
I was born in Rabun County, which for those of you in the know is where they filmed the movie Deliverance. So all the extras are my family. Thank you. I'm not lying either.
That's too funny.
Yeah, I grew up in Hall County. Got just as I grew older, moved south, and then said, okay, let's go to this postage stamp sized swamp where it rains sideways.
That's fantastic.
It's amazing. The good thing is I'm only 5 hours drive away from Paris, and I will never drive in Paris. Those people are insane.
Well, at the start of the show, you mentioned that we should talk about what it means to learn how to drive in a country that has a roundabout that includes not just cars, but also, what was it? Cars, bicycles, trams. It's
a roundabout in Amsterdam, and I'm trying to remember exactly which plane it's where it's at exactly, and I can't because it's dramatic. But it is a large multi-lane roundabout for cars, and then on the inside of that is tram tracks, and then on the outside of all of that are bicycle paths. And you kind of have to know who has right of way when. And the most dangerous thing on the road ever is an Amsterdam's bicyclist.
Really?
Yes. I have seen them play chicken with freight trucks, and the trucks will back down because they have no fear. My mother-in-law is originally from Amsterdam. And I would not ride a bicycle with her. I'm like, no, I'm not taking my life in my hands like that.
Right.
And I just refuse. Those people are insane, and I'm just not going to do it. I mean, I will drive my car in the middle of Amsterdam with streets that are like 2 matchsticks wide. I will not ride a bicycle in Amsterdam.
This is an interesting thing. I've got a couple things to say. I mean, here in the U.S., especially where I live here in Georgia, there are new roundabouts that are happening, new traffic circles that are happening, and it's pretty clear that no one really knows how to properly navigate a traffic circle. You're supposed to turn signal when you're exiting a traffic circle, and no one does that. And I just shudder to think what a multi-use traffic circle would do to people here. I think there would be just complete and total chaos. But
Oh, you want to try some of the double ones?
yeah, I was
We have
hoping you'd
double
bring that up.
ones and roundabouts with stoplights in the middle of them. Because why not?
That's
And
crazy.
I read the Gainesville Times. It's on my Facebook,
Yeah.
and I literally just fall over laughing. I don't know how to use this. I'm like, it's literally 2 steps.
Right.
You yield to traffic on the roundabout, and you signal when you're going to get off.
And your comment about bicycles reminds me of India and how chaotic it is in India. I don't understand how anyone could be on 2 wheels in that traffic. It's just insanity, and yet people do it. Yeah.
Yeah, I used to have a first line team in India, and I would travel for 2 weeks a year. Yeah, that's another place I would never attempt to drive.
Right. No.
And I'm thinking of Germany too. When I lived there years ago, most bicycles, people on them were a-okay and conscientious, but the nuns. Yes, I mean the women of the church. Nuns on bicycles in Germany, you better get the hell out of the way. They were mean, and they had no mercy.
I think Nuns on Bicycles is going to be the title of our next this episode.
Well, my buddy and I, who were trying to be in a little rock and roll band and never quite got off the ground, we had an idea for this, screaming heavy metal instrumental that was going to be called Nuns on Bikes.
Yeah, they are definitely. Although Germany doesn't quite have. I mean, they have the bicycle path infrastructure, but not quite to the extent that the Netherlands does.
Oh yeah.
And that only came about actually in the 70s. I think it was in the 70s when gas prices just went through the roof, and they started.
Yeah.
And there are actually more bicycles in the Netherlands than people.
Misty, how far away are you from Germany?
I'm about an hour and a half from a little town called Kleve, about 2 hours from Cologne, Dusseldorf. It's an 8-hour drive from here to Dresden. 4 hours to Frankfurt.
Do you have the opportunity to do the Autobahn thing?
Yes.
Do they?
Frequently.
I mean, the 3 stripes restricted or no speed limit restricted stuff is not as prevalent as it used to be, though, is it?
Well, it depends. We traveled through Germany a lot because we used to vacation in Italy, about 45 minutes south of Venice, and it's about a 15-hour drive in which we would split over 2 days. And so we go through Germany and then through Austria, and the no speed limit is between major cities. And about the time you start hitting the outskirts of a major city, then it'll drop down, to 120 and then maybe 100. Unlike the Netherlands, where they put all of our speed limits on the highways at 100 kilometers an hour. And I hate these people so much. My car is mortally offended that she has to do 100 kilometers on that little stretch of freeway between my house and Schiphol Airport.
That's too funny. All right. So what are you driving, and how fast does she go?
What am I driving? I am driving a 2016 Mazda Mx-5, known in the United States as a Miata. And she is soul red. Her name is Claudette. And her maximum speed is listed as 204 kilometers an hour. We've hit 175 on the Autobahn.
Very cool. And is it completely stock? Have you done anything to it?
Nope, it's completely stock. My husband's a horrible person and won't buy me the chrome luggage rack for the trunk. But my son did buy me red fuzzy dice for the rearview mirror. So, of course, that was after I made him scream like a girl when I straightened a roundabout.
Right. I was thinking maybe you dropped the turbo in it or something.
No, she is fully stock. She is absolutely amazing. I mean, it is, and like I said, unfortunately, when I got this car for Valentine's Day in 2017. I'm spoiled, I admit it. I'm a princess. And when I got this car, I had this idea of, romantic summer trips to Luxembourg, which is very much like up around Helen and Hiwassee. It's the same type of mountains. It's the Belgian Ardennes, which are more like the Appalachians than the Alps. And then I realized that, yes, my husband is 6'9". He will not fit in this car.
Is that a bonus, or is that a pro or a con?
It really depends. It really depends on where I'm going.
Right.
because sometimes it would be nice. He has the Mazda CX-5, which is like the SUV.
Yeah.
And it's a great car, don't get me wrong. But I would absolutely love to be able to take a long weekend in the summer and just cruise the mountains. And I can either do that with me, myself, and Eminem, which sounds really good on a Bose sound system. Or we can do it in his car, which has a sunroof, but it's still not quite the same.
Right.
So, and that's, it does have its disadvantages being a roadster, but on the other hand, the look on the Leiden police officer's face when I pulled out of the parking garage and I was fully dolled up. I when I'm not dressed in work at home clothes, I go very vintage, usually 1950s.
Oh, okay.
So full makeup, hair, etc. Here comes this red little sports car, top down, and then all of a sudden, Eminem comes from the speakers.
Right.
And the police officer, I'm middle aged. There's no getting around that. And the poor police officer was, definitely like double take, like, excuse me. And I just smiled and waved and
what
kept
am I
on
seeing
going.
here? Yes.
Yeah, but I've had a lot of memorable moments with this car. I think the very best one though was I just gotten her and I was at a stoplight in town, and there was a crossing zebra pad. Well, I can't remember the English word for it. A crosswalk. That's it.
Crosswalk.
And this little boy, about 5 or 6 years old, was crossing with his mom, and he saw my car. And you do the trick where you turn your right foot and press on the accelerator with your heel. And this car sounds gorgeous. I mean, it's definitely vroom, vroom. And the look on his face, his eyes got big, and he was pulling on his mom's hand and pointing at that car, just like, oh, mama, look at that car. You could just see him just going, ooh, so those kind of moments right there,
Sure.
those are some of the best ones.
Well, I've got a handful of questions for you, as we do every guest.
Awesome.
3 questions, which I sent to you before, I think, and
Yes.
and then a 4th random one, which I'll pick on the spur of the moment here. And just for the record, Amanda, I had muted you by accident. I don't know if you want to unmute yourself or not. That was my mistake. But so the first question, Misty, for you is, what is your dream car?
Lotus Elise.
That was quick. A Lotus
There
Elise.
is. I would sell my son, who's 21, and probably my husband's kidneys too, if that's what it took to get a Lotus Elise.
Take it away, Ben.
Oh, sorry. Little miscue there. No, I'm being the Lotus nut that I am. I know a lot of people who have Elises. Very good choice.
It's a beautiful car. I see them frequently here, and I'm constantly going.
You really should beg a ride with somebody, because the handling is like nothing else. It's the closest thing to go-kart for grown-ups. It is really, really a superb ride. Utterly amazing on a twisty road.
I will probably now go into a huge campaign with my husband of, if you really loved me.
and he won't fit in that either.
Yeah, but he's like, I just paid your MX-5 off. You're not getting a new one. I'm like, but if you really loved me.
They're a lot more affordable over there than they are here. So even a secondhand one probably won't be a bad deal. And you can get the Series 1 on that side of the world from the late 90s and early 2000s. Very affordable.
With the exception of gas is currently a Euro 71 a liter.
Ooh.
Yeah, but it's got a Toyota engine.
Yeah, there is that.
All right, Misty, where's your next road trip?
I've got 2 on plan for once we're out of hard lockdown. The first is short term, and that will be me hauling behind over the border to Kleve, which is a German town. First, so we can stretch our legs and blow some of the cobwebs out. And they still serve McRibs over there. So I have priorities. And I need to go to the grocery store there, because they also have like a really nice snack selection with like the frozen chili cheese nuggets and the jalapeno poppers, and I throw them in my chest freezer. Yeah, priorities, I have them. The second one, long term, will be me and my husband going on vacation, and I'm kind of like going, let's go back to Italy, but he wants to go back to the Barcelona area, which is also about a 15-hour drive. The downside to that is we have to go through France, and I don't particularly like France or the French people, and that's just me. But Barcelona is really nice. You know, in the area of Barcelona, Margaret La Mer is very nice, and that will be for a vacation. They have some really good 18+ resorts there, and it's really, really pleasurable because we drive about 8 hours a day, and kind of make the journey part of the vacation too. So those are the two, but the first one will probably be Clava once we're allowed to leave the country. Right now we're on a super hard lockdown. We're not even allowed to leave our houses after 9 p.m. until 4 a.m. unless you have to work or you're walking your dog.
Right.
And I have 3 cats, so, and none of them want to walk on a leash, so
All right,
luck on that.
Question number 3. What's the most fascinating thing you've seen in someone else's house or garage?
I have a really good friend of mine whose husband is a drummer in a Dutch Zydeco band, so they're very artistic, and she has this bust. It's like a torso. It's like from thigh to shoulder torso of a man, and she continually decorates it in all these different manners, and it's so fascinating, and it's so slightly offbeat, and it's just kind of one of those things you see it and you go, that's cool. It kind of makes me feel good.
There was that long silence after bust, and I'm like, oh God, where is she going with this? So,
I meant bust in the classicals, you know, like the artistic style. Mind out of the gutter.
Right. All right, Misty, my last question for you today is, you can have the power to make the clouds rain down anything. What would you make it rain?
Anything. What would I make it rain? Lotus Elises? And that was okay. So, I'm the 2 things I'm really jonesing for that I have a really hard time getting unless I travel to Wassenaar, and who wants to travel to bloody Wassenaar? I don't. Vanilla wafers and graham crackers, because I just can't make a good banana pudding unless I travel to Wassenaar and pay like €5 for a box of freaking vanilla wafers, and I'm just not going to do that.
That is a brilliant answer, but it seems like graham crackers and vanilla wafers are things that you could easily stick in a care package and ship. No,
I've had lots of strange things. I actually had a friend of mine ship, like, the big like skating rink box of the miniature York peppermint patties.
Yeah.
Oh.
My best friend like mailed me one of those, and I was like, you are a god among men. Indeed, So
I'm intrigued, though. Like you say, you can take the woman out of the South, but you can't take the South out of the woman.
It's just not going to happen.
Yeah,
it's not going to happen. I mean, I get a package every once in a while. My husband goes, "What is this?" I said, "It's lard." He goes, what the hey? And I'm like, I have to order it from this mill down south, and they send it to me in like 750 gram packages, and it's lard, and shut up and eat your biscuits.
Nice.
Or I will slap you with the cast iron skillet that I cook them on.
That might hurt.
Touch my lard.
Right. Thank you, Misty. Good stuff. And yes, hopefully you get some vanilla wafers and some graham crackers in the near future, because
We'll have to create a care package.
That would make.
Yeah, we'll have to do something. Misty, thank you for being our guest today. I've thoroughly enjoyed it so far, and hope you'll stick around for the rest of the episode.
Oh, I certainly will, and it's been a pleasure.
Great. Ben has a Lotus update.
Yeah, well, it's not an Elise. I don't fit well in those either, nor can I afford what they go for over here. But the 1970 Elan Plus 2 that I've been tinkering around with, it's been quite a while since I've done an update. So the short good news is I have been driving it a little bit. Woo-hoo! Finally.
Yay!
Yeah. But problems keep happening. The biggest one I'm dealing with right now is I'm having a lot of trouble keeping oil inside the engine. Now, the good news of that is it's not coming out any of the gaskets or seals, which is where, old Lotuses usually leak. The bad news is it seems to be some problem with the atmosphere inside the crankcase wanting to come out wherever it can, which is either through the breather or the dipstick tube. The breather you can do so much to contain. I've put an oil catch bottle on that, and then for a couple of test drives, the catch bottle completely filled up and it overflowed into the intake tract, and so I still had a intake duct full of oil, just like before the car ever got worked on.
Goodness.
Yeah, and then I've had just massive spray coming out the dipstick tube, coating everything in the left side of the engine compartment.
So what's causing the back pressure?
Well, I'm really not sure. I did a leak down test, which is not a leak. Yes, leak down. I was confusing with another test there for a second. Leak down test is similar to a compression test. Difference being with a compression test, all you're doing is putting a pressure gauge that will hold its needle at the highest point that it's read while you spin the engine. You stick it in the spark plug hole, turn the thing on the starter a few times, and look to see where that needle goes. It shows you, the amount of pressure being generated inside the cylinder. Well, what I did was the leak down test, which is a little bit different. You put your gauge in the spark plug hole, but instead of turning the engine, you bring the piston to top dead center and you connect a compressed air supply to the gauge, which is really two gauges. One gauge shows you the supply pressure of the air, and the other gauge shows you the pressure that the cylinder holds. And the difference between those gives you some idea, how much pressure is escaping either through the valves or the rings or someplace like that. And if it's a large escape, then you listen for noises, depending on where you hear the air rushing out, you can figure out where it's going. But all four cylinders of this engine scored 2%, which is blisteringly tight. The engine was rebuilt 400 miles ago, so, that's not that much of a surprise. So it's not blow by, it's not pressure that's coming out of the combustion process. After consulting with some forum guys, I found out that the oil capacity I had in the engine was way too high, that due to some problems with the way the dipstick was set up, I had the oil way overfilled. So I got that corrected. The oil was at the correct level. I went out and drove again and got oil spraying all over the left side again. So I'm thinking there's something to do with how the dipstick seals in its tube that isn't quite right. I'm going to experiment with that a little bit. I'm also going to make sure that there are a couple of plugs in the left side of the cylinder head that, where they drilled the oil galleries through the head when it was manufactured, they then have to plug those holes. And I want to make sure that those are tight and not leaking, but I don't think they would be spraying that much oil, even if they did have a little bit of a leak.
Well, you'd see marks that indicated they were leaking.
Yeah. And there's really not much oil around them to speak of. So, that dipstick tube is the primary suspect right now. So I'm going to investigate that a little bit further. The gearbox is in good shape, though. I had drained the oil that was in it and refilled it with some Redline MTL, and now it is shifting beautifully. I'd thought before that maybe it needed rebuilding, but no, it just needed some better oil in it.
You're talking about the 5-speed you dropped in it?
No, I haven't put the 5-speed in yet. It's still the original 4. And that 4-speed is, widely lauded for the quality of its shifts. A lot of people say it's nice and precise like a rifle bolt or something. Well, my analysis of that is it is a little notchy, but yeah, it does shift very well. It snicks into gear nicely. The 5 that I've got has been modified to supposedly be that good, but I won't really know until I get it in.
Of course.
Yeah. But everything else is pretty much working. I did have an incident during one test drive when a fuse blew, and luckily it was just, I think, a case of the fuse being old and tired. So yeah, and then now I've got a starter solenoid that's gone bad, but such is life with old cars.
I was going to say, it's an old car. What can you do?
Yeah, but pretty soon I'm going to start putting the interior back together.
Well, it was exciting to see it running. I managed to see the video of that, and that was fun.
Yeah.
So cool. Keep us posted. I hope you get all that stuff ironed out.
Right on.
Let's do a quick element of listener mail. What should we do first, listener mail or worst car stories?
I vote for mail.
Let's do mail.
Such a rarity.
Yes. All right. So our friend Jennifer Bell says her question is, what are the best ways to quote unquote junk a car? She says, should you sell it to a We Buy Junk Cars entity? Should you donate it? Should you just call direct to a junkyard or put it on the curb and wait till it gets towed? What do you guys think? Misty, what do you think? How do you get rid of a junk car?
You call your cousin Bobby Joe and you donate it to the Derby. That's how I would do it. or I would give it, or I'd give it to my uncle so he could rebuild it and make it into something decent.
Right. Amanda, what do you think?
I think explosives are always in order.
Oh yeah, okay. I'm sorry. I'm moving over to Team Amanda now.
Always reasonable.
Ben, do you have a good answer for this? You're going to take this one seriously, or am I going to be the only one to go there?
Well, if you don't have an appropriate place to blow it up, and that is a problem for a lot of people, and you don't have an uncle who can do anything with it, then probably the easiest thing to do is to, make a charitable donation with it. I've done this in the past. I had an '83 Accord that blew its head gasket at something like 250,000 miles. And, the thing was old and dented and tired. It was the best car I ever had at that point, and it still ranks high on the short list. But there was no practical point in trying to save it at that point. So, I called up the place that takes old car donations, just one phone call, and they came and got it while I was at work. So I just left it parked outside with the key in it and a signed title in the driver's seat, and it was gone when I got home. And they mailed me a receipt.
Yep. I know some of the rules on donating to nonprofits has changed. You used to be able to claim full Blue Book, and now you can only claim the amount that the nonprofit gets for the car when they sell it. I think that's the way it works.
If that sounds about right, but of course, for most people, it's not going to be enough to be worth itemizing anyway.
Exactly. For most people, they're still going to take their standard deduction anyway.
But
yeah, you could always do that. There are plenty of people out there who will happily take your vehicle, whether it's a boat or a car. I know Habitat is the first one that comes to mind. They have a good program for that kind of thing. And I've seen other nonprofits who also will, like Georgia River Network. It wasn't as assembly lined as the Habitat mechanism, but the Georgia River Network would take your car and work with a third party, I think, to get all that straightened out. And it's a good way to support the nonprofit community and to support your favorite causes if you have a car that you simply want to get rid of. Otherwise, I honestly don't know a whole lot about the people who buy junk cars. I imagine they're giving you pennies for the dollar for your junk car just to get it out of your way, and then they either chop it up or fix it up and try to sell it or something. Or I'm not really sure what happens after that, but I don't. It's one of those things that's your personal preference. I don't think that there's a right or a wrong whether you choose to donate it or to send it to a We Buy Junk Cars entity. Or not. And I imagine the junkyards are the We Buy Junk Cars entity, or at least that's how they get their stuff.
Yeah, I think so. Whether or not it becomes, a scrapyard thing, or it just kind of depends on the condition and what can be done with it, and if somebody buying it has a supply chain it can go into.
Exactly.
If it's something popular that there's a demand for used parts for, then they probably spend about 3 hours plucking it and then send the rest to the crusher.
Right, exactly. So I don't think that there's a single best answer to Jennifer's question. I think it just depends on preference, and if the car is running and at least is serviceable, my personal choice would be to donate it just because of the way I'm wired. But
sure.
But yeah, so I hope that helps Jennifer out. If not, Jennifer, please give me a buzz and tell me we've messed up your life forever with this answer. Our second question comes from friend Robert Drake. Robert says his van needed some work, and he had it towed to an independent mechanic shop over here in the Avondale Estates area of Atlanta, and was notified that they have to go out of business, and not because they're not getting jobs, but apparently they can't hire mechanics who aren't good enough anymore, that a lot of their people are getting paid to go elsewhere, or their mechanics. There's something he said, but I didn't know if any of you guys had heard about this, that shops can't keep good mechanics in their stables. And I don't know, Misty's got this look on her face like, what are you talking about? I have no idea what the European environment is like for this sort of thing. So please fill us in.
I'm not even thinking about that. I'm thinking about back home, because I come from a long line of auto mechanics. My granddaddy was a mechanic, and his my uncle was a mechanic, and my uncle's oldest boy is a mechanic, and his youngest boy is a paint and body. I'm sitting there going, if you can't keep a good mechanic in your shop, what's wrong with you?
I wonder, but to Robert's point, and maybe we need some clarification from him, this particular shop, Avondale Independent, they have been around for decades, and now all of a sudden they're not going to make it. So I don't know.
Yeah, for a shop to be around for, as you say, decades, and then suddenly they can't keep competent mechanics.
Yeah. Maybe they're all going independent.
There could be.
Or something's rotten in the state of Denmark.
Right.
Yeah, it could be all kinds of things at play here. It might not be anything to do with cars. It might just be a labor market issue of some kind or other.
It could be. It could be.
Maybe it's possible that they just might not be able to pay them enough to retain them.
Right.
Because of the way their business operates.
Yep. Well, that's our listener mail for the day. If anyone else has a question and would like to pose it to the Thing About Cars crew, please send it to us via our Facebook page. That is facebook.com/thethingaboutcars. That should be able to find us, and we will definitely try to give you a shout out and hopefully a useful answer. So yes, hopefully we can give you at least a reasonable answer for your questions, and we love it. We'd love to hear from you guys, and just send us a note, please. I guess it's that time. Should we wrap up the show with a Grand Trivia Auto question?
I suppose so. If we don't have any worst car stories,
would you like a worst car story? I do have one.
Let's do a quick one.
Let's do a quick one.
Oh, let's share. I love worst car stories.
All right, let me pull up a good one here. Elizabeth Parks says that her worst car was a 1986 Cadillac Cimarron, which she says she describes as basically a Chevrolet with a Cadillac hood ornament on it. She says it was a fine car when her dad drove it. She got it in 1998 when a tree fell on the car she had left at home when she went off to school. Eventually, the electric windows didn't work and the driver door wouldn't open, so she couldn't go through drive-thrus in the Cadillac anymore. And that's her worst car story.
Wow, yeah, those were the, my memory's a little foggy here, but I believe that was the J body from General Motors.
Yeah.
Chevy Cavalier, Pontiac J2000. I think Buick made a Skylark out of that platform or something, but
That's right.
they weren't a big seller because a lot of people just didn't want to pay that much for such a small car.
I remember them clearly.
Me too. I knew this woman who was older than Moses who drove one. Nice lady, and it kind of suited her in its own peculiar way. But those were an interesting product.
Right. So that's our worst car. I don't know if anyone else amongst us has an old 86 Cadillac Cimarron story they want to tell, but Elizabeth, thank you for that note, and let's wrap the episode, shall we?
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Grand Trivia Auto question was, in the late 1990s, why did BMW recall their GPS system models? Was it because they could only give directions in imperial units and not metric? Was it because an electrical fault would make David Hasselhoff appear in the back seat? Was it because German drivers refused to take directions from a female voice? Or was it because the units would reverse street address numbers in some instances? Misty, what do you think?
I'll be honest, I had to really almost flip a coin on this one because I know a lot of German men. But I am going to have to go with it reversing house numbers.
Reversing house numbers? Misty says it was reversing house numbers. Got it. Ben, what do you think? Why do you think BMW discontinued? Yes.
Well, I've just got to go with David Hasselhoff, just because, because I mean, on the one hand, he's the Antichrist, but on the other hand, he's like the most popular singer in Germany.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, so yeah, I'm voting for Hasselhoff here.
Got it. Amanda, what do you think the answer? Why do you think BMW recalled their GPS systems?
I have to go with the Hoff as well. That is my favorite possible excuse for anything ever.
Well, if an electrical fault made David Hasselhoff appear in my backseat, I would probably have a severe problem with it too. But the truth of it is, the truth of it is, German drivers simply refuse to take directions from a female voice.
Dude,
Wow.
I should have gone with my first instinct. I was like, I know all these German guys, and that sounds about right. But then I was also thinking about how they actually word their numbers.
Yeah.
Instead of saying 45, they say 5 and 40. So both of those had possibility,
Exactly.
and I just went the wrong way.
But this was
I went
a
the
good question.
logical way.
Yeah, but it's true. And there's another write-up on it I saw online somewhere that German drivers at the time really did not like listening to a female, which just seems so bizarre to me. But
things haven't changed much.
Really?
Speaking from experience.
By the way, there is a website that you can spend hours on reading the proof that he is the Antichrist. If you go to esquilax.com/Baywatch, that's esquilax.com/Baywatch. Right at the top, David Hasselhoff is the Antichrist, and I have proof. This is very entertaining reading.
Well, David Hasselhoff, if you're out there, if your representatives are out there and you're listening to us and you want to come on and defend yourself, we would be happy to talk to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bring Kit with you.
Bring
I was about to say you've got to bring the car with you though.
Exactly.
Otherwise, you're going to have to ask for the Japanese guy that does the yodeling with the chicken
Oh,
in Lederhosen.
wonder what kind of car he drives.
Probably, I'm going to say either a Trabant or a Deux Chevaux.
Interesting.
Hmm.
I was going to say, is the Deux Chevaux the German equivalent of the Citroen? The little
Well,
Citroen 2B?
it is. The Deux Chevaux is the Citroen.
That's how you say 2CV in French.
That's how you
Wait a
say
minute.
That's how you say two horses
Are
in
you
French.
kidding? Oh my
That too.
God.
And in Dutch, it's called a lelijke eend or an ugly duckling.
That's hilarious. Oh, that's too good. All
It's
right.
in German, it's an Ente, which is a duck, and they actually had a special German market version, which translated it literally into Rush Duck. It had a cartoon picture of a duck in an aviator's hat on the side, and smoke coming from his feet, which is great for a car that does 0 to 60 in about 5 hours.
Right.
Yeah.
Too funny. Well, thanks, you guys. This has been an excellent episode. Again, Misty, thank you for being our guest today.
You're most welcome.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it when you recommend this show to your friends, just even if it's to ridicule us in some small way. We really like that. And if you manage to visit Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts and leave us a little review there, that improves our visibility amongst other people who like this kind of content, car stuff and whatnot. And in the meantime, we hope you and yours are staying safe and warm out there this winter. We will see you with another episode in about a week. Take care. Bye.
See ya.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. This has been The Thing About Cars. We'll see you on the road.